Welcome to Mr. Chalk's Revision Tips. In this video we will look at
ATP, chemiosmosis and the electron transport chain. So, ATP synthesis involves the transfer of electrons from the inner membrane space through an inner membrane back into the matrix. So the combination of two components provides sufficient energy for ATP to be made by the multi-enzyme complex 5 in the mitochondria. Right, so this is more generally known as ATP synthase. So ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is the energy carrying molecule used in cells because it can release energy very quickly. So energy is released from ATP when the N-phosphate is removed. So ATP is an organic compound that provides energy to drive many of the processes within cells. ATP is used to transport chemical energy in many important processes, including aerobic respiration, so glycolysis and the citric acid cycle, and fermentation. So a single molecule of ATP is a nucleotide derivative and is formed from a molecule of ribose, a molecule of adenine and 3 phosphate groups. Chemiosmosis is the movement of ions across a semi-permeable membrane down an electrochemical gradient. So an example of this would be the generation of ATP by the movement of hydrogen ions across a membrane during cellular respiration. ATP synthase is an enzyme that creates the energy storage molecule ATP. ATP synthesis occurs in inner mitochondrial membranes in the mitochondria. The enzyme required for the synthesis of ATP is ATP synthase. It is located on the inner membrane, so there is a transfer of protons from the matrix to the inner mitochondrial membrane that allows this to happen. So, the electron transport chain is a cluster of proteins that transfer electrons through a membrane from a gradient of proton that drives the creation of ATP. So we start off, 2 electrons are donated to the electron transport chain at complex 1 by the reduction of NADH to NAD+. So NADH was produced earlier during glycolysis. The 2 electrons released into complex 1 move all the way through the different complexes in the electron transport chain. The energy from these 2 electrons is used by complex 1 to pump 4 hydrogen ions into the inner membrane space in the mitochondria. As these electrons move through the electron transport chain, they are accepted by electron acceptors. So these 2 electron acceptors are called C and Q. The energy from these 2 electrons is then used by complex 3 to pump another 4 hydrogen ions into the inner membrane space. So 10 hydrogen ions in total are pumped across the membrane. FADH2 is reduced to FAD+ and donates 2 electrons into complex 2, which then enter the electron transport chain. So because complex 1 is not involved when FADH is reduced, only 6 hydrogen ions are pumped across the membrane. So the electrons are finally accepted by an oxygen and 2 hydrogen atoms to form a molecule of water. So the hydrogen ions then move back down a concentration gradient through ATP synthase, which gives it the energy to go and produce ATP.
Thanks for watching.